tropical rainforests. Home to half the plant and animal species on Earth. Lifeblood of forest people. Life-saving medicine. Food for a hungry world. Rainmaker. Oceans. Birthplace of evolution. Breeding ground. Sanctuary. Narrow creek to thousand-mile river. Alpine meadow to vast grassland. Wind-carved canyon to mist-tangled peak. Creatures from the delicate to the majestic. For 3 decades, World Wildlife Fund. Dedicated to saving life on Earth. The largest international conservation organization in the world. Sponsor of more than 2,000 conservation projects in 116 countries. World Wildlife Fund has played a major role in protecting threatened animals like the peregrine falcon and the African elephant. Operation Tiger, the first international campaign to save an endangered species, helped bring Asia's magnificent tiger back from the brink of extinction. World Wildlife Fund has helped create nearly 450 parks and reserves worldwide. Protected areas covering more than 260 million acres of wildlife habitat, from Arizona's Saguaro National Monument to Peru's Manu National Park. Working with local people in developing nations around the world, WWF sparks homegrown conservation projects that improve lives without destroying natural resources.
When we launched World Wildlife Fund in 1961, our mission was quite simply to save the planet's wildlife and their habitats. Our mandate, considered almost revolutionary at the time, still guides our work today. To be international in scope, since most conservation organizations did not focus on global problems. To ground every project on strong science, to give it the authority it needed to succeed, and to make protection of the Earth's tropical rainforests our highest priority.
The logo WWF's founders chose was China's giant panda, a symbol of critically endangered wildlife species.
In our first year, we raised $33,000 for 5 animal and bird protection projects, all of them in the Americas. It was a modest beginning, but we had big dreams.
5 years later, World Wildlife Fund was supporting 80 species protection projects on 5 continents. By its 10th anniversary, WWF had funded 550 wildlife conservation projects worldwide. Time magazine praised it as the United Nations of Conservation, whose efforts on behalf of hundreds of endangered species are felt from Scotland to Sumatra. UN Secretary General U Thant said of WWF's mission, "One can easily imagine how much money and effort we would be willing to devote to preserve an animal species on the moon if the astronauts had found one. No species on Earth is less precious." During its second decade, World Wildlife Fund broadened its reach to defend wildlands as well as animals. In Mexico, WWF and local conservation partners saved the winter home of more than 100 million monarch butterflies. Across Kenya's vast Masai Mara National Reserve, WWF worked with the Masai people to safeguard great herds of wildebeest, zebra, gazelle, giraffe, and impala. On the island nation of Madagascar, WWF financed a network of protected reserves for tens of thousands of animal and plant species that live nowhere else on Earth. As WWF's third decade began, thousands of species were fighting a losing battle for survival. Protected habitats were threatened by a rising tide of humanity, and life and death struggles for food, firewood, and farmland. The world's rainforests were going up in flames. World Wildlife Fund rose to the challenge with bold new scientific programs, economic strategies, and policy initiatives to protect entire ecosystems, helping governments worldwide translate conservation ideals into practice. World Wildlife Fund merged with the Conservation Foundation, a highly respected environmental research organization, fusing innovative analysis and targeted action into a powerful new partnership. From Costa Rica to Madagascar, WWF pioneered a global conservation strategy called the Debt for Nature Swap. To date, WWF has negotiated 10 debt swaps worldwide, financing more than $30 million worth of conservation projects. Traffic, WWF's International Trade Monitoring Unit, helped curb poaching, smuggling, and illegal trading in threatened animals, including the sea turtle, African elephant, and Asia's leopards and giant pandas. WWF's innovative Wildlands and Human Needs program set out to enlist local people around the world as partners in projects to improve living standards and save irreplaceable natural resources for future generations. WWF field teams worked side by side with Indian tribes, farmers, and villagers from the rainforests of the Amazon to the Himalayan highlands, donating equipment and supplies to village collectives, helping forest tribes keep their ancient cultures alive, marshaling local people in the struggle to conserve their lands. Funding for these ambitious field programs quadrupled. Here at home, in an era widely dismissed as the Me decade, hundreds of thousands of Americans answered the call to action. World Wildlife Fund's membership skyrocketed during the 1980s, reaching the 500,000 mark in 1988 and topping 1 million by 1990. As it begins its fourth decade, WWF faces a complex new set of global conservation challenges.
We will add 1 billion people to our overpopulated planet by the year 2000. One of conservation's bitter ironies is that the poorest people in the world often live in its richest wildlands. Saving wildlife is impossible unless we respond to the human needs that put animals and their habitats in danger.
Putting fences around natural areas isn't enough. Man-made poisons cross national borders. Spraying pesticides in Latin America threatens animal life and human health a continent away. And when consumers in wealthy nations squander resources and energy, we rob people in the developing world of the natural wealth that they and we need to survive. 30 years ago, we set out to save endangered species and their habitats. Today, we have a global strategy to save an endangered planet.
I'm convinced that we can do it. World Wildlife Fund has been the world's conservation leader for 3 decades, and we've never been stronger and more effective than we are today. We have allies all over the world, from tribal leaders to heads of state. Person by person, village by village, our modest investments are generating thousands of local conservation victories all over the world. If we can bring about change on this scale, I believe we can also make the global changes needed to protect the diversity of life on our fragile planet.